Namaste and welcome to this exciting new episode of Sathology Debunking Mythology. Sat means truth, Logos means a study or science, Sathology means a science of truth or study of truth. It's the word that is true antonym of mythology. Myth is a Sanskrit root word which says a fake lie or imagination. And mythology means a science or study of fake lie or imagination. This word was purposely invented by the colonial powers to prove to the colonized people that your entire ancient history is fake. It happened in South America. The word was invented for India because India was an English speaking country. And the British were English speaking. India was not English speaking country that time, but it was invented in 1844. Between 1838 and 1844 is first time you see the usage of this word. And but it was became commonly used for all the territories which are colonized, especially when the British referred to them and the French French you call it mythology and British call it mythology. So this is the way it went on. And today the impact is you can see it South America. They have no native culture, as if the world did not exist before 1492. It didn't happen. And the same thing with India. They keep on saying that the Indian history cannot go go back more than 4,000 years, 5,000 years. That is still the academic propaganda in the West. Now today I have a very special guest, which shows how India has come back. Bharat has come back in a way. They have built their indigenous defense capabilities, which was not there in the colonized lands that time. All colonized lands welcomed the colonizers without knowing whom they were welcoming. And if people do not learn from that history, it's going to repeat again. History teaches you important lessons, which you must take it seriously. Like if you want to succeed in a PhD research paper that you're doing, most of you are researchers. If you want to succeed, you have to take examples from the past papers, how people have done it. And if you do not do it, it's not going to work out for you also. So I have a very special guest, an Indian Navy veteran and the author of a very beautiful book and is timely also, Balakot Airstrike. And it also shows the resurgence of practical decision making in the Indian country, as in India as well. So without delay, let us welcome Shri Manan Bhatt. Jai Hind.
Jai Hind, Aditya ji. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's great that you break myths. It's great that you are standing with truth, Sat. That is, and let me tell you, it has happened in India also. People have been reading some people, some writers who call Indian history, Indian ancient history as myth, and it is known as, I mean, the new generation is getting access to it as a myth. So it's very important to debunk these myths, and it's a pleasure to be here. Jai Hind, everyone. Good evening, Jai Hind from India.
So you wrote this book. So what was the mindset? Why you have to write this book? I'll say the repeat again, and if it is available on Amazon, I want all the viewers to get this book, Balakot Airstrike by Indian Navy veteran Manan Bhatt. So, and how India avenged Pulwama. That's the title of the book. You can search it on Amazon or any Flipkart, I think, in India, and other sources. So what was the motivation behind writing this book, sir?
When this Pulwama terror attack happened, I was in a bit of a shock, because these were the very buses in which these were the very troop carriers and the buses in which even Indian Navy personnel used to travel. And I could sense myself, I could see myself sitting in the very bus which the suicide attacker blew up. It was a personal kind of an attack for me. I felt like I've lost something which was very near to me. Those 40 the lives of 40 men. Sometimes it happens in India, in earlier India, terror attacks used to happen very regularly, and there was very little chance which was made to it, and governments did not have that sensitivity, or they never understood the pain and trauma of being a family, being the family of those who have lost their lives in terror attacks. During 26/11 2008 terror attacks on Mumbai, I was there posted on board a naval ship in Mumbai, and I was there. I was present at the Victoria Terminus, or what we call is Chhatrapati Shivaji Terminus railway station. That is the main railway station of Mumbai. And when Ajmal Kasab was having a go at the passengers, innocent passengers there. So I was there with my family, and I was traveling to Goa for a vacation, and I had to evacuate my family. I had to escape that place. So I know what it is to be amongst a terror attack, and I like the way US treats terror. I like the way they keep US interests first, and they attack the terror at their basis. This is what US did when 9/11 happened. But after 26/11 2008, India did not attack the basis of terror. They after 15 or 20 days, the public anger died down, and nobody in the political fraternity were bothered to retaliate and teach the terrorists a lesson. But the India of 2016 or the India of 2019 was no longer a subdued state. It under a decisive leadership of Mr. Modi, India started to be very firm while dealing with terror. And this is what happened in 2016 surgical strikes, when Indian Army teams special forces teams were sent across the border and across the LOC and border, and there were 6 terror hideouts, which we call launch pads, were attacked and destroyed. Terrorists now have learned that Indian Army or Indian Armed Forces will not be remaining a mute spectacle to their reign of terror. Pakistan, as we know, has been a breeding ground for terrorist organizations like Al Qaeda, Taliban, and organizations which particularly affect India are Lashkar-e-Taiba, Jaish-e-Mohammed, and some more. What they have been targeting India, they have been considering India as a soft state. So it was something which was very new. The surgical strikes sent them into shock, and that is what which they were meant to be. The surgical strike made Pakistan realize that India will not be the mute spectacle for their terror attacks. And over a period of time, when 2019 Pulwama terror attack happened, let me get back to that. 40 innocent CRPF men were slaughtered by a suicide bomber. I went to TV on a lot of debates, and I was asked again and again. I was asked the questions regarding those innocent people and the motive behind. I was thinking that what could be the motive behind such a terror attack? Why would somebody want to kill so many people? What was his motive? And as I got into touch with some families of these people, this Pulwama fallen soldiers, those 40 soldiers. I realized their plight. I could sense that a kid, a boy, who was waiting that his father would come back from duty and he would bring in a toy soldier for him. His father is never going to return. A wife who was pregnant, she waited forever. From her wait was going to be forever. Her husband would never return. A mother whose only hope, whose only breadwinner was her only son, who would never return. A father, an ailing father, who was waiting that his son would come back and have a Pakka house built for him. His son never returned. His son was never going to return. This personal stories of tragedy of the fallen soldiers of Pulwama was emotionally very appealing to me. And over a course of time, when I talked to those people, those families, I realized that people are thinking that when 40 people are dead, and the bus in which they were traveling is no longer visible. It looks, the bus. If you look at the photographs of Pulwama attack, one could see that the entire bus looked like a big football. There was nothing left of it. Even the dead bodies were not found of so many of the fallen soldiers. So it was a dastardly attack, and one would tend to wonder that how could something be left of those people? How could you get a tale out of? How could a story can progress without any sense of? There is nothing left of them. So how could one write a story about them? But when I went through the stories of their families, when I went through their last calls, which were accidentally recorded on their Android phones, some last audio message, some last video calls, some last WhatsApp video messages. This is what they had left, and one could and accidentally I was able to create even the sitting arrangements of the bus before the terror struck them. Terror struck those 40 people. I was able to learn about minute by minute account of what happened in the bus, because somebody or other was talking to their families on phone as they were in transit, and they had nothing to do, and they were traveling. Those 13 out of those 39 people, four men were supposed to escort them, and other 35 were unarmed. So each one of them was somehow either talking to their families or shooting some videos outside their windows, which were showing serene beauty of Kashmir and the snowing that was going around. Everybody was so happy that they were proceeding to duty to a valley that seemed peaceful from their eyes, but it wasn't so. So when I was able to recreate those scenes from the buses, when I could understand that this what their sitting positions were, I think I realized that my calling has come. There is some divine intervention which wants me to write about this man and their duty, and even after facing stone pelting, even after battered with so much hatred, so much petrol bombs, everything that they get in Kashmir from the people, still from the locals, some of the locals, still this man remained very calm in situations, and still even after this bus was attacked, a soldier whose name is Iqbal Singh, he was sitting in a bus which was just traveling next to it, and his quite a lot of friends were traveling in the ill-fated bus. He took his own hands and fed a poor Kashmiri boy, a paraplegic poor Kashmiri boy, with his own hands, and he fed his own tiffin to him. So one can see that this CRPF man or the man on ground have no inherent hatred towards these locals. They all they want is they want to perform their duty, and they want peace to prevail in the valley, Kashmir Valley. So it has my calling, and I began to write about the book. I began to do my research about the book. It took me around 2 years to complete my research, because it's a very the subject is very vast, from Pulwama terror attack to it takes you from Pulwama terror attack to the airstrikes that India did, the preparation and the planning that went behind in war room for because the Prime Minister Modi didn't want Air Force to have any collateral damage, and it was clear, there were clear instructions from him to attack only the terror infrastructure, and not any civilian. There should not be any civilian casualties at all. So the planning took a lot of time, and they have to be very precise and specific. In India, when one talks about war stories or books regarding skirmishes, and not a lot of books are written, and those are written talk about quite a few things, but they as they not soldiers are not writing much, so they tend to forget that there are quite a lot of people who work behind. You see 12 to 18 planes, fighter jets going across LOC and attacking the seat of terror in Balakot. But people don't realize that there are maybe thousands of people working behind them, preparing the aircraft. So from planning the mission to preparing the aircraft, there are quite a lot of people who are involved. So I wanted to tell everything about them. I was never a pilot, but I have worked behind the scenes quite a lot. So I know that there is a lot of hard work that goes behind the scenes. So in a fluid way, in a interesting manner, it was I think it was my calling to tell the people of India, tell the readers, every reader, about what goes behind the scenes. And after that, Pakistan retaliated when India struck the terror and eliminated around 350 terrorists. The very next day, Pakistan retaliated. This very episodes that happened in a very sudden way in a space of 12 days are very interesting for a military history buff, because it teaches. As a nation, or as armed forces, we had a lot to learn from this, from biggest terror attack that happened in around 33 to 4 decades. Then Indian Air Force crossing the LOC even after so many decades, after 71 war, because in the 1999 Kargil skirmish, Indian Air Force wasn't allowed to cross the line of control, the border, the de facto border that we call it. So it was there were quite a lot of fuss, and when Pakistan retaliated with a huge strength of aircrafts with JF-17s and using the famed American US made F-16, this was also a first for South Asia and for Indian Air Force also, because you don't see such big formations attacking each other. Two big countries engaging in combat, even without calling it a war. So there are quite a lot of learning technically also, and for the forces also, because this basically it is said that your experience of war, your experience of battle is as good as your last fought battle. So US is quite good at it. They have been fighting other people's battles in Syria, Iraq, and Afghanistan. So their experience, their learning experience have been very recent. What happened with India and Indian Air Force was, even with Indian Navy, that their last fought battles were in way back in 1971. So it came out, the airstrike. Yes, the airstrike proved that Indian Air Force has the capability to strike terror deep deep inside enemy territories, and it also proved that Indian government, the government of India, the decision making will is no longer subdued, or is no longer afraid to take positive steps for its citizens and against terror. It also gave a message to the enemy, to the terrorists, to the deep state of Pakistan, or one can call them ISI, interstate inter-services intelligence, the dreaded intelligence agency of Pakistan Army, that India will not no longer be a mute spectacle to their proxy war. The strike back that Indian Air Force did, the Pakistan Air Force did with 24, 28 aircraft, was once again a first of its kind. Indian Air Force defended Indian assets with whatever the aircraft they had on patrol on that day, combat air patrol aircrafts like Su-30, Xu-30, and MiG, which was flown by Wing Commander Abhinandan. So there were quite a few lessons which were to be learned from this air duel that happened on the very next day. And armed forces in general have learned a lot. It is true that Pakistan was not able to, was not successful in their Operation Swift Retort that they had named. But that is also true that apart from F-16 kill that was achieved by higher skills of Wing Commander Abhinandan and his MiG-21 Bison, but India was not able to score another kill. It was expected that the better aircrafts, the far more advanced aircrafts, like the Su-30, Russian-made Su-30, would have scored a kill, but they were so busy in defending themselves from electronic warfare of Pakistan's advanced aircraft, JF-17 and F-16s. They could not launch their own attack, and that is why they could not score another kill. The Abhinandan kill Abhinandan achieved an F-16 kill, and that was a first of its kind, and entire world went into a frenzy. Quite a lot of people in US said that this is not possible, it has not happened. But Indian government has, after examining all the proofs that are available from across border and from India, that Wing Commander Abhinandan has been credited with a confirmed kill. He has downed an Pakistan F-16. So India has learned a lot from that. India suddenly realized that we have to upgrade and renew our fleet, our depleting aircraft fleet. So and MiG-21 are no longer the potent weapon that could handle the two-front war that India is faced with. On one side we have a very belligerent and aggressive China, and on the other side we have Pakistan, which has been a rogue neighbor ever since we have this partition. Pakistan has partitioned from India. So India put its all resources behind the LCA Light Combat Aircraft Tejas program, so as to enable it to replace the aging MiG-21 Bison. Also, the India is receiving now the France-made Rafale aircrafts, which are almost two squadron strength. We already have 2 squadron strength of Rafale aircrafts. So India has realized the capabilities of its fleet. Also, it made India realize the strengths and weaknesses. It was kind of this skirmishna. It was kind of a SWOT analysis for India, and it opened the eyes of our leadership also. It was necessary, I think, in a way that sometimes in a country that is claimed as a peace-loving country, it is quite often said that India is a peace-loving country. Our peace-lovingness was taken by enemies as our weakness. It is no longer so. But to me, to remain strong in the region, to remain belligerent in the region, as because we are faced with terror from so many angles, we have to remain at the forefront of military technology, and we have to keep on upgrading our military performance. That has happened as uh, very recently. We have seen a drone attack, unarmed drone, armed drone attack on a frontline airbase. India has been preparing to launch its own swarm drone technology. But in defense, we had developed a few. DRDO has a Defense Research and Development Organization of India has developed some drone defense technologies. But when an attack came, it was imminent. Everybody in the security, Indian security, knew that. Sooner or later we will have a terror attack through drones. It was anticipated, but and 100% defense from drones, rogue drones, wasn't possible. India is now planning to buy some technology, also to develop some indigenous technology, so that we can fight the rising drone menace from across the border also. So it's kind of happened that, after the airstrikes, sudden push in technology, sudden push in indigenization has happened. India is planning P-51 submarine, are going to be built, but quite a few global tenders have global builders, global players have turned down because of India's strict adherence to Make in India and indigenization clauses. Germany has shown some interest in. Germany has said that we will share the technology. So India is now very specific and precise in its decision making. It has happened because of the I believe that it has happened because of the recent skirmishes. The recent skirmish against China was also an eye opener for Indian Army, when China tried to intrude into India and tried to stop Indian patrols from patrolling in Ladakh, Leh Ladakh. So it was understood that China, as was a growing economic power, would no longer intimidate India with any military actions, as they have their own economic interest, are China's priority. But what happened was they were aggressive, and they tried to intrude into India, and quite a few Chinese people in the skirmish, in the Galwan skirmish, that is known as now a year back, that happened, and so many Chinese people's army soldiers were killed. So 20 of Indian army soldiers were also killed in the skirmish. It opened suddenly. It opened floodgates. Some people were thinking that this might go into a third world war where something will happen. India remained firm. India caught some. India sent its army and surprised China, and Indian armies, the Ladakhi troops of Indian army, they went ahead. They captured some very important heights in Kailas range. Chinese army was taken aback. They were surprised. So, but on the technology front over there also, at line of actual control, that is known as the area that India and China shares, the borders. These are known as these borders have been since 1962 war. India and China has issues with these borders, and as they have not been demarcated in a proper way, India is coming ahead and asking China to demark the borders so as to avoid skirmishes. But China is very firm and were not into realize, and were not interested into doing that. China has been making claims over India's Arunachal Pradesh also, but India has always remained firm. And suddenly the Galwan skirmishes made the leadership of the day have realized that China can no longer be, that we cannot have a faith on them. What China was doing in South China Sea, what China had done when it released the Wuhan virus, this is what they came out with. Even with India also, India consider them as their friend. We have China is having big export surplus with us. In China is the biggest. China is the biggest exporter that India has, and the trade surplus vis-a-vis China with India is very high. So the leadership people of India realize that we have it is actually us who are paying for China's modernization of China's People's Liberation Army. And India, there were calls from people to ban Chinese goods. There were calls from people to ban Chinese applications, and this is how some 80 applications which were run by Chinese were banned. Ji, Aditya ji.
So what a great overview you have given, and all these details are in your book also, right?
Ji.
So my first book, and for viewers who are watching, we'll go Hindi English for so that everybody in India also gets it on the YouTube. So in my पहली बुक में भी मैंने उसमें पुलवामा पे पहली बुक डेडिकेट की है. उसी समय आई थी मेरी पहली बुक, Sathology Debunking Mythology. I was writing many books at the same time I used to write. लेकिन पहली बुक पब्लिश हुई थी and I dedicated to Pulwama soldiers. There was a big anger in the Indian American community also. वो पुलवामा इंसिडेंट एक तरह का ग्लोबल इंसिडेंट था. पूरे विश्व में जितने भी भारतीय ओरिजिन लोग हैं सब में गुस्सा था, सब में इक्वली. क्योंकि जो अमेरिका में भारतीय रहते हैं उनका दिल इंडिया में ही रहता है. वो चाहे इंडिया का जो भी होगा, दे फील हियर. Like recently also, all the incidents happened, and Indian Americans did a very good work in protesting at various institutions what they could do within their power. एक question आता है that Indian Navy is a very strong navy according to the US Navy, but generally the people do not know much about Indian Navy. The strength of Indian Navy is the 5th largest force in the world. विश्व की 5वीं सबसे बड़ी force है. And it covers an area which is Indian Ocean region, which is economically the richest region in the entire world.
It is the jugular vein. It is the jugular vein of economy in South Asia region.
And there, Indian Navy is the most powerful force. And I believe that even though American Diego Garcia is there, but they also rely on Indian Navy to sustain themselves. Is that right?
It is, Aditya ji. It is. Indian Navy has a big role to play when it comes to Indian Ocean region, and India is a big partner of US. Let me tell you that I was with Marine Commando Forces, that is Marcos. I worked with them for a year. I served with them for a year, and I've done quite a lot of joint exercises with US Navy SEALs. So we have been playing. I've played football with them. I have done reconnaissance operations with them. I've rappelled with them from helicopters. Jumped into the sea. It is a relationship that goes far back. Even when I was posted on board Indian Navy ships, Indian Navy and US Navy have been doing joint exercises since quite a long time, and even during international fleet review, presidential fleet reviews, US Navy ships join Indian Navy, and there are exercises, Malabar exercises and all that we do with US Navy. Now, when it comes to Indo-Pacific, it is a well-known fact that India is a major player in this. If somebody is there to stop the Chinese juggernaut, it will be India. There are challenges that India has. Chinese Navy is expanding at a very high speed. If we live around, अगर हम पिछले 100 साल की बात करें और उस 100 साल में in those 100 years अगर हम वर्ल्ड वॉर्स को छोड़ दें, if we leave वर्ल्ड वॉर्स aside, so किसी भी नौसेना ने, किसी भी नेवी ने इतना फास्ट एक्सपेंशन नहीं किया है। पिछले 5 साल में चाइनीज नेवी पीएलए नेवी, पीपल्स लिबरेशन आर्मी, पीएलए नेवी ने 80 शिप्स कमीशन कर चुके हैं। वो लोग फ्रंट लाइन वॉर शिप्स कमीशन कर चुके हैं। दे आर एक्सपेंडिंग एट अ वेरी फास्ट रेट। इंडियन नेवी सैडली, हमने एक एयरक्राफ्ट कैरियर कमीशन करने में आई थिंक 99 में इसके डिजाइन कमीशन हुए थे विक्रांत के, जो कि अभी तक कमीशन नहीं हुआ है। वी आर गोइंग टू कमीशन इट सून। सो 25 years इज अ लॉन्ग टाइम। हमें अपना जो टीओटी है वो टर्नओवर टाइम को थोड़ा कम करना पड़ेगा भी है। अगर हम अगले 10 साल तक, ये मैं पूरे यूएस को आई गिव दिस अश्योरेंस कि अगले 10 साल तक इंडियन नेवी विल बी होल्डिंग फोर्ट इन द इंडियन ओशन रीजन एंड फ्री एंड फेयर आईओआर के लिए हम प्रतिबद्ध हैं। इट इज our commitment to our quad countries also, जो यूएस के साथ हम क्वाड में जिस तरह से इंडिया ने जो एक थोड़ा आगे बढ़े हैं हम, और ऐसा लग रहा है कि बाइडेन एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन इज इंटरेस्टेड टू स्ट्रेंथन अप द क्वाड। जैसे इट विल बी इंडो पैसिफिक नाटो, ऐसा मैं विश करके चल रहा हूँ, एंड वी विल हैव अ वेरी गुड रिलेशनशिप विद यूएस। थोड़ा और कमिटमेंट हम ये एक्सपेक्ट करते हैं कि यूएस से थोड़ा और कमिटमेंट आए, एंड ये क्वाड को एक हम स्ट्रेटेजिक एली तो हैं ही, बट साथ में हम इसको और डेवलप कर सके। इंडियन नेवी 10 साल तक, अगले फॉर द नेक्स्ट 10 years इंडो पैसिफिक में हमारे जो भी इकोनॉमिक इवन जो जॉइंट हमारे इंटरेस्ट हैं वर्ल्ड ओवर, जो जॉइंट इंटरेस्ट है उसमें होल्ड फोर्ट करेगी। बट इन फ्यूचर अगर इंडियन नेवी और इंडिया मॉडर्नाइजेशन करता रहा तो ठीक है, और उसी स्पीड से जिस स्पीड से चाइना कर रहा है उसको समहाउ वी हैव टू मैच इट। अगर हम नहीं कर पाएंगे तो बहुत मुश्किल होगी फ्री एंड फेयर इंडो पैसिफिक को मेंटेन करने के लिए। पूरे वर्ल्ड ऑर्डर को खतरा है। तो ये भी मेरी रिक्वेस्ट है यूएस से, यूएस के थिंकर से, थिंक टैंक से, कि इंडिया को मॉडर्नाइज करने में, इंडियन आर्म फोर्सेस को मॉडर्नाइज, खास करके नेवी को मॉडर्नाइज करने में हमारी जो पार्टनरशिप्स है उसमें और डीपनिंग टाइज की जरूरत है, और स्ट्रेंथन करने की उसको जरूरत है।
See, given the situation of the condition of the US forces, what happened in Afghanistan, Vietnam, and other places, and the British experience with the Indian forces in World War II, World War I, in a straight fight, Indian forces have never lost in a straight fight. Only in 1962, India lost it because they could not use the Air Force. This is the public view given out. But there are a lot of American Navy personnel also watching the show right now. In fact, where I live is the 32nd Naval Base, and which is the largest naval base in San Diego, which is for the US. I had a chance to visit INS Brahmaputra when it visited San Diego, and I was able to go on top of the ship and see the ship. It's huge, impressive, very impressive. So there is one aspect which the American Navy really talks about the Indian Navy ships, is that they are very heavily armed. There is no deck space to even walk properly. They're so much well armed. Is it a design thing, or it is just by the nature we have kept it?
Basically, Indian naval ships are inspired. We had relations with only Russia. So the major warships their designs are somewhat inspired by Russian warships. We have Kashin class warships from Russia. I served on board Rana. It had a catchphrase, Rana Barte Jana, but it was a massive. These Rana, Rajput, Ranjit, these ships are massive war fighting machines. But in my mess deck, we had 35 in-living sailors on board, and when we used to sail, we had almost a strength of almost 50 sailors on board. But in the mess deck, we only had 6 bunks, and lockers below the bunks, they were also 6. So these Russian ships were very consistent. The new ships that we are building, particularly the Brahmaputra class, let me tell you, it's a steamship, and which it is an indigenous ship. India has made it. हमने MDL में ही इसे बनाया है, मस्गांव डॉक्स में. So I'm very happy you took name of Brahmaputra. It was an honor because I was also on board a same ship, and Brahmaputra is a sister ship. So it got me delighted. But US में ऐसा है ना, US is a modern country, and it has it builds its ships in a far more better way than because we have limited numbers of ships, so we tend to equip them as best as we can. During Kargil war, when Indian Navy realized that it did not have any proper ship missile shields, we had to purchase Barak missiles, and modify our ship, OPVs, offshore patrol vessels, in particular Sukanya, और उसका हेलो डेक हटा के हेलो उसमें हेलो रखने की कैपेसिटी थी, उसको हटा के उसे हमने बाराक मिसाइल फिट करना पड़ा. तो ये ऐसा होता है ना कि मिड टर्म रिफिट्स आते हैं, इसमें यू चेंज, आपको चेंज करना पड़ता है, बिकॉज आपके पास जो रिसोर्सेस है, यूएस के पास, यूएस हैज एन एडवांटेज कि उसके पास रिसोर्सेस बहुत ज्यादा है, एंड इंडिया जो लिमिटेड रिसोर्सेस में वी टेंड टू मैनेज अवर थिंग्स. हमने एक यूएस शिप भी जलाश्व जिसे हम कहते हैं, आईएनएस जलाश्व, दैट इज लीज फ्रॉम यूएस, वो भी एक सिस्टर शिप है, स्टीम से चलता है, और मेरे काफी दोस्त ऑन बोर्ड पोस्टेड थे व्हेन आई रिटायर्ड. सो we maintain our ships for a longer period. Our ships, submarines, they serve for 35-40 years. In US, the Americans decommission their ships very fast, and they commission new ones. So you have new ships, new technology, far more better mass decks, and the environment. I love going on board of US ships. I love the openness, the conversations that we has always been very positive. And if you talk about workmanship, I know that I have beaten. I have been playing with US forces. We used to play volleyball also on board halodeck, and during a match, I was privileged to beat the US team. So we had a very good relationship with both the nations.
Generally, Americans trust Indians a lot, and that is true with the British also. Generally, if you look at the soft power of India across the political aisle, whether it's Democrats or Republicans, India is a unanimous choice for being a friend. That is a general thing, accepted thing. And generally, Americans are never threatened by India. Every other nationality, they are threatened, but not with India. I don't know. There is some I think, common democratic credentials. All these things play a role also. And India is also well regarded as a democratic country in the US. Now, the Marcos, since you mentioned Marcos, now how do you compare Marcos with SEALs? Now you have the first-hand experience.
मैं बताऊं, I will always stand with Marcos, क्योंकि मैंने यूएस नेवी सील्स के साथ फुटबॉल, गणपति फुले महाराष्ट्र में एक जगह है, हम लोगों ने फुटबॉल बहुत खेली है. ठीक है, तो ये एजिलिटी में ना मार्कोस आर मच बियॉन्ड. प्रोफेशनलिज्म में, इक्विपमेंट में, मेंटल स्ट्रेंथ में, ये सब में यूएस नेवी सील्स आर वेल नोन, एंड दे लाइक, आई मीन, नो अदर फोर्स इन द वर्ल्ड कैन मैच देम. बट अगर बात करें तो हमारे मार्कोस भी यूएस की ही MP5 राइफल्स और ये मॉडर्न राइफल्स से आर्म्ड हैं. हम लोग, इट्स अ को एग्जिस्टेंस, जहां अगर बात करें कि एंटी पायरेसी ऑपरेशंस, उसमें यूएस और इंडियन नेवी साथ में काम करते हैं, और काफी सारे एंटी पायरेसी ऑपरेशंस हमने साथ में किए हैं. और गणपति फुले में मुझे अभी भी याद है, मैंने ऑलमोस्ट हमारी 10 मैचेस हुई थी, उसमें से 5 मैच में यूएस नेवी सील्स फुटबॉल में जीते थे, 5 में हम जीते थे. तो मैं ये कहूंगा कि वी आर द बेस्ट, बट नो ऑफेंस, I have always enjoyed, US has a very, as a democracy, I respect US a lot, because each and every soldier, each and every civilian that I have met who is from US have never had any air about themselves. They have been very down to earth while professionally performing duties with us. They have been like in subcontinent when officers get into action, they have some air, but in US, the US in US armed forces, in US Navy SEALs also, officers might be getting extra privileges, but when it comes to sharing the load, when it's come to it comes to sharing the duties, officers and men, they work in tandem. This is what Marcos is also all about. As it is a special force, there is no difference between man and officers. But in India, as we have this colonial legacy of armed forces. There is some difference. There are some difference, some distances which are being maintained. But on board US ships also, when I visited them, I've seen that the equality that US practices is hats off.
No, that is the quality of a warrior. If you look at, mostly an author of ancient history. So I studied the Narad Muni's conversation with Yudhishthir. He says, do your armed forces constantly attack the foreign countries who are following adharma? Narad Muni is asking Yudhishthir, and Yudhishthir says yes. And one of the qualities of the warrior is they are. It is said they are soft from outside but hard inside. Their resolve is very strong. Like Arjun was a very humble person, and all the Pandavas are very humble because they know their power, they know their strength. So they are outwardly. And US Navy, I interact with them. Many friends I have there who serve there. They're generally very, very nice people, and all of them are friendly to India. And majority of them practice yoga. Majority, because we have almost like 45 nuclear submarines parked in San Diego. 45, and Los Angeles class, mostly Los Angeles. They're attack submarines, and they are very nice people. And one or two submarines are totally vegan because the crew is entirely vegan, because the meat can basi ho jata hai, it can get putrefied very quickly. So they have to keep it fresh. The submarine has to be fresh from inside. So one question I have. So in a hypothetical scenario where America turns rogue, will the Indian Navy be powerful enough to defend India? Hypothetical scenario.
We have been friends since long, but it's a tough question because when somebody asks me about US, I'm reminded of faces of my friends, Petiosa Mike. He was my buddy. I'm also reminded of the times that we have shared together, and it is the only force with whom I work so closely. So
this incident has happened in 1971. It has happened.
Yeah, it has happened. Actually, what has happened is the US has a soft spot for Pakistan. Even the British has a soft spot for Pakistan, and US should never forget. Even the CIA should never forget that it is when they were attacking Afghanistan, Pakistan had provided a safe haven to the biggest enemy of US, the biggest enemy of humankind, that is Mr. OBL, Osama bin Laden, in Abbottabad. That was exactly 10 kilometers away from their most defended airbase, Pakistan's most defended airbase, and their army academy. Even the Abbottabad house of UBL, or Osama bin Laden, was just 40 kilometers from the place where India attacked in the airstrike. So US and I think UK also should realize that Pakistan is a rogue nation, and it can no longer be a friend of any country, any democratic country. There is no democracy in Pakistan. That is also one fact. Yet during the Trump administration, we have seen so many aids which were given to Pakistan were cut off. even the present administration is also not going soft on the terror state Pakistan. Pakistan also is in grey list since so long that the grey is now the new black. So I wish, and I don't think during 71 there were quite a few misunderstandings between India and the US. So that is why the Seventh Fleet was probably sent to defend Pakistan. But no longer we are at loggerheads, and India is I think the best friend that as a democracy in US has in these lands in this ocean.
From the US Navy perspective, they consider Indian Navy stronger than Chinese Navy. From the US Navy, if you ask the soldiers and sailors, because they think that the Chinese Navy ships, they are just empty vessels, like they cannot fight a war. They are not ready to fight a war. Therefore, they are not threatened by the US in Chinese Navy at all. That's why even Biden and Trump, they parked. I know a couple of ships here were commanded by my Indian American Navy captains, commanders of the ship, captain of the ship. And one of them is, I won't take anyone's name, but they're commanded by the Indian Americans. And they parked right inside South China Sea, just right next to, just 1 mile from their island, which they have claimed. And when I asked them, were you threatened by any Chinese this thing? They said they cannot come close to us for 300 kilometers. For 300 kilometers, they cannot come close to us. And they were parked right next, 1 mile from the island which Chinese have reclaimed. Well, just 1 mile. So everybody was line of sight. Since you were Marcos, and Marcos were also used in Ladakh, and India's number one military adversary is China today, not Pakistan. So do you think Indian Navy is ready now? They're sending 4 ships, 1 destroyer, 1 corvette, 1 frigate, and 1 anti-submarine ship to South China Sea. So do you think Indian Navy can flex their muscles all the way from here to South China Sea?
We are already in exercise, in a war exercise with Vietnam. We weren't Indian Navy India was initially circumspect to send ships in South China Sea. US has been asking asking Indian Navy to send their ships. But when China did the thing, and when China tried to attack us, this executive decision was taken, and now we are in tandem with US in the South China Sea also. I was also initially disappointed when India was circumspect and was not sending their ships to South China Sea. Now, at present, we are in an exercise. INS Kora is there. INS Ranjit is there. I feel so proud, when Indian Navy ships are operating in SCS. Now, let me come to the point that you made, and the US Navy is also making. That Chinese ships cannot be considered. You may build 80 or 100 ships, but your ships and your crew, they should be ready. There is one thing that is known as workup. You prepare, you do exercises for a long time, you prepare your ships to be war ready. Are Chinese ships war ready? Are their crew war ready? You cannot immediately beef up your navy to meet up the requirement of 80 or 100 ships in 5 years. To a sailor takes around 5 years to mature. An officer takes around 8 years to mature on board a continuous environment of warship. You need your officers and sailors to serve on board for continuously for initially 6 years, initially for 8 years. That is this much time one takes an officer in a particular class of ship. If you want to prepare a sailor or an officer for say a aircraft carrier like Vikrant that we are going to commission soon, or for Admiral Gorshko that is known as Vikramaditya. It takes 5 to 6 years to prepare every single soldier. So you need to post around 1,500 sailors, including officers, on board a frontline aircraft carrier. They will do their workups, they will do their exercises, they will understand that how their machinery functions. क्या क्या failures आते हैं उन machineries में. किस तरह से आपकी टेक्नोलॉजी, हाउ योर टेक्नोलॉजी इज गोइंग टू परफॉर्म. सपोज let me give an example. During Kargil war, the famed Bofors gun, it basically the Sweden sells it with saying that it has a range of 25 kilometers. But when in rarefied atmosphere at heights of 18,000 feet, when Bofors was operated, it had a maximum range of 45 kilometers. So 25 to 45. This was the difference. This is how workup goes. A military ship cannot be just. It's not it is not an office where you can just train a staff member and who will start doing his computer entries by 6 months. It takes a lot of time to prepare your sailors, to prepare your men for the job. Chinese, US and some of my seniors also say regularly, in terms of fleet, you might grow, you might build so many boxes, but in terms of technology, in terms of worked up crew, you cannot build them overnight. And China, their soldiers are also known to be pussyfooted. They have their mental strength is never up to it. The PLA army, when during Galwan skirmish, they also succumbed a lot. It has, when India and China, both the countries build up their sides, and from both the sides we have 40 to 50 soldiers posted in the Ladakh plateau. It also gave there are quite a few lessons to be learned from India also. But Indian soldiers are hardy, and they have this experience to be posted at those areas. However, what happened with Chinese was that their soldiers used to get ill. They used to cry. There have been quite a few videos on board on their sites, Weibo, which is exclusively Chinese. So now China has started to in the Ladakh plateau. China has tried to train Tibetans to stand against India, and forcefully they are employing kids as soldiers and to train them against India. So you cannot do that overnight in a war scenario on ships on board, because your soldier, first he has to be technically equipped. Second, he has to be war hardy, because the sailor has to survive in rough seas. I remember so many sailor friends of mine who get so much seasick that they're not even to get up from their beds during sailing. So you don't want. I don't think China has realized, or their captains, what is in their hands, that उनके captains के हाथ में अभी क्या परिस्थितियां हैं, या are they able to tackle it? उतनी ज्यादा चीजें, as it is not a democracy, उनकी ships के onboard क्या परिस्थितियां हैं, what is the situation on board their ships, वो बाहर तो नहीं आता है. But internally, US knows, India also knows that they are not fighting fit. That's true. Aditya ji.
So one of the last questions, it has already been very long, and I would like to continue as long as I can, but we'll schedule other sessions to discuss more things. So for this book that you have written, and I would like all the viewers to get this book from Amazon, Flipkart, wherever it is available. I'll post a link of the book as well. And so how much this book will give strength or confidence to the Indian youth to be proud in their forces and join in big numbers to protect law?
First and foremost, I don't claim to write this book in a way that, because suicide bombing is something that has touched my nerve. So my writing towards suicide bombing is not of a terror apologist. I've written it as a soldier. It is my point of view. And I think when a youth reads it, he should feel the urge to join the Indian Air Force. He should, because the bravery of Indian Air Force pilot Abhinandan that comes out throughout those 3 or 4 days captivity in Pakistan's hands, And when Pakistan attempted those famed CIA techniques of enhanced interrogation methods, he stood firm, and the only answer he gave was, "I'm not supposed to tell you that." With this is a legend. He has been an Indian legend, and his story should be told for generations to come. What he said, उसने अपनी वाइफ को क्या बताया पता है? उसने बताया कि how are you? उन्होंने ISI ने कॉल किया तो his wife said that चाय की रेसिपी जरूर लेके आना. See the bravery. See the bravery of a soldier's wife. See how they perceive. She doesn't know that whether he will come back alive or not. But he stood firm. His family stood with him. Entire India stood with him. And what Modi ji said कि अगर पाकिस्तान ने अभिनंदन को नहीं छोड़ा तो वो कत्ल की रात होगी. तो एक ऐसा नया इंडिया, like America, India is now very, very affirmative in its in her actions. Every Indian is feeling so proud, and this is one episode, one epochal episode from Indian recent military history that should that should make each and every youth feel proud about the way they feel about their military and the nation.
Thank you so much. I think, and the viewers who are watching it, do share this video and spread it. And also, viewers who are watching this video, I appeal to them that your first job is to protect, because all these threats which are coming from Afghanistan, Taliban, Pakistan, and also China, Indian youth has to be ready. I know Indian armed forces are ready, but the civilians also need to be ready and support their forces. And irrespective of who you are, where you belong to, or what faith you follow, if you do not have the house, how can you follow anything? So protecting your own home is your responsibility, not others. So thank you so much for to Manan Bhattji. What is the title that I should use for you? Major?
Petty officer.
Petty officer Manan Bhattji. And thank you all of you for watching the show. And I'll see you again. Namaste. Thank you.
My pleasure. Jai Hind. Namaste.
Jai Hind.